And now, it's time for another Dice Tower review with Tom Vasel.
Hey folks, I'm Tom Vasel. Today we're taking a look at Lab Wars. Now this is, you just got a big research grant and you are going to be figuring out and researching things and writing books and trying to win a Nobel Prize. But other people are doing the same thing, so you're trying to beat them out. You know, the typical, Farnsworth. But this is a card game for the most part. You're going to be playing characters. You're going to be using cards to get research points, and those research points to get other kinds of points and change them all back into, well, eventually, hopefully, a Nobel Prize. Let me show you. Each player starts with some lab items in front of them. These are the same ones, everyone has them. They're also going to draw some cards from the deck. These are in their hand, other types of lab items. Players are going to have 5 different cards: a PhD student, principal investigator, professor, emeritus, and postdoc. And so you're going to have these in your hand. And at the beginning of each turn, each player is going to get 2 research points. These are going to be how this is kind of the currency of the game. And you'll draw another one of these cards into your hand. Then players are going to simultaneously pick one of these characters to play. So maybe I'm going to pick the postdoc. So I play her down. Everyone reveals them at the same time. Players are going to get the bonus that it says on the card. So for example, for her, I'm going to get 1 research point for each lab item. That's worth 2 in my lab area. So I look at my lab area at the beginning of the game. These are all worth 2. So she would give me 3 lab points. Now, at the bottom of each card, there's a sabotage thing. So if someone else played the professor, then I get my sabotage thing, which I can take 2 lab points from that person. Now, if multiple people play, let's say 3 people played postdocs, only the first person in clockwise order is going to be able to sabotage the professor. But almost all these guys can be sabotaged. Once you play a card, you're not going to be able to use it again until you play the professor, who will let you get all your characters back. And the professor also lets you draw an action card. You also get to draw an action card every time you sabotage someone else. Action cards do all sorts of weird things, like this one here. Play rock, paper, scissors with a competitor who has more nurture papers. That's these here. If you win, you steal a nurture paper of theirs and place it in your lab area. Or this one here. Target competitor does not receive a character bonus on their next turn. Or this one here. Swap 1 lab item from your lab area with 1 from a components of the same or lower value. So these can be played at different points in the game. Also, if you have any cards in front of you with stars, they go off at the beginning of each of your turn. So later on in the turn, you can place 3 research on this card, and at the beginning of your turn, you can take this off and take an equal amount from the supply. So it's kind of a handy thing. This will double your research points that you stick into it. So once everyone has played their different characters, then we untap all the lab items that have been tapped so far, and the sabotage phase where people play negative things on each other will happen. And then starting with 1 player and going around the table, each player has different actions that they can do. They can buy lab items from their hand. So if I have, for example, 7 research points, I can put the mass spectrometer in front of me. If I have 5, I can put the centrifuge in front of me. Some of these cards will be used later on. Some of them can be used right now. Some of them give points. Like, for example, this gives 1 DNA research point. This gives 1 chemical data research points. These are kind of nebulous. You don't actually take them. You just use them right now. And if you have enough of them, you might activate cards. So I could tap both of these to get research points on them, and then use those to take 2 research points here. Sorry, 2 data points. I'm sorry. Then use those to get 2 research points. If I got 4, I would get 5 research points. This one lets me draw more items. And so as you get more and more of these cards, you'll be able to, this one here gives you 1 of either one, and then lets you do different abilities. So as time goes by, players are going to be able to activate and do different things based on these cards that they have on their turn. Players also can buy nurture papers, published books, and Nobel Prizes. These are worth points at the end of the game. This is kind of what you're trying to do to win. These will get more expensive as each one is bought, and only a certain number are out there based on the number of players in the game. The game ends When 2 of these piles are gone, remember, they're going to have fewer cards than if there's fewer players, and then you just add the points of these, and whoever has the most points is the winner of the game. Although there is some bonus points given to the person who has the most papers gets 3 extra points, and whoever has the most items of value is going to get some points. So let's talk about the things I like first. I like the theming of the game a lot. The whole idea of working in a lab and using the centrifuge and different things to get discoveries and write books and get a Nobel Prize. The theme works really well. The artwork too, the components, the cards, everything is pretty good. The problem with the game is it has too many problems. So let's go through them. First of all, let's go with the worst problem at all, and that's those action cards. They're just awful. They do really negative stuff to other people. It's a huge problem. There is a variant in the rule that says take them out. Definitely play with that variant. Unfortunately, taking them out is not enough to save the game, but just the whole idea, it's like, ha, 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 I sabotaged you and did something negative to you. Then I also get a card to do something even more negative to you. And I don't mind take-that games as much, but this game, which is about getting this little engine together and getting these points and things, and people just keep hitting you the whole time, that part is just not fun. The character part. One of my favorite things in a game is taking cards, playing one, doing the action on that. You can't get it back till you play other cards, put them back. Mission Red Planet, lots of games have this in it. This one does that, but I really dislike it for 2 reasons. One, there's only 5 cards, and some of them are pretty good, a couple are okay, so it's getting pretty obvious here. Then if you play a card, there's a counter to that card. Someone's going to sabotage you if you play it. So you're like, oh, well, I should play a card that no one's going to sabotage me. But wait a minute, there's 4 players at the table. There's 5 character cards. The chance of someone sabotaging me is so high that I might as well not even worry about it because I'm just going to assume it's going to happen. And I find that very problematic. That whole sabotage thing is just blah. I just dislike that. Then the cards themselves. Some cards, playing the cards are very good and useful. And like I said, it's fun to get that engine going. Even if it is a little wonky, sometimes you're going, okay, I got 3 of these points and 2 of the DNA points, which therefore I run this machine. But as the game goes by, each player's turn gets longer and longer. They're like, I'll do this, which gives me this, which do this. And the game definitely is a rich get richer because as you have these cards, more and more stuff you can pull off. And you say, but Tom, that's what those action cards were for, to knock people down. Yeah, but it's just this vicious cycle. It's like, look at this cool thing I do. All right, boom, you don't get to do that stuff this turn. So the game is like they took a lot of good mechanisms. Buying, getting research points to buy some cards. They're cheaper at the beginning, more expensive as time goes by. Fine. Playing character cards from your hand. Fine. Getting these different points to build a little engine. Fine. But there's too many of these things. The game is way too long for what it is, and yet feels fairly random and fairly vicious. And the vicious part I don't mind, but it kind of feels a little bit out of place. And the game just has too many problems for me to recommend it. So I like the idea of Lab Wars, just not the game itself. Dice Tower Judgment, too many problems and too much in a small game.
Thanks so much for watching the Dice Tower videos. Find more great videos and reviews as well as our top-rated audio podcast at Dicetower.com. You can also find other great shows at Dicetowernetwork.com. I'm Eric Summerer, and you've been watching The Dice Tower. The Dice Tower is sponsored by Cool Stuff Inc., where you can find great games for great prices. Cool stuff in stock. Check them out at CoolStuffInc.com.
Затвори врата.